Welcome to Shadow Fable. Don't forget to subscribe. In the fluorescent twilight of early spring, Ha-Newell's footsteps echoed softly along the marble corridors of Daehua Dental, a sleek, luxury clinic perched in a towering business district of modern Seoul. The building's immaculate facade and high-end reputation masked a deep, pulsating undercurrent of secrets, hidden just beneath the veneer of perfection. Ha-Newell, a diligent intern with a flair for details and an innate sensitivity to the minutiae of human imperfection, had arrived early, compelled by a nagging intuition and an acute awareness of the strange history whispered in hushed tones by senior staff. The day had begun like any other. A series of quiet procedures, murmurs of clinical assessments, and the gentle hum of modern dental equipment. But in the silence after closing, as the corridors emptied and the neon city lights bled through the window displays, Ha-Newell found herself inexplicably drawn to an unmarked door behind a stack of sterile cabinets. Its tarnished metal handle and faded label, scrawled in Korean characters, simply read Archive. The word sent a shiver through her. It wasn't in the clinic's brochure, nor had it been mentioned during any of her comprehensive orientations. With trembling hands, Ha-Newell turned the handle and pushed the door open. Beyond lay a narrow staircase spiraling into darkness. The air grew thick with a chill reminiscent of memories better left unvisited, a coldness that contrasted sharply with the sterile, clinical warmth above. As she descended, the sound of her footsteps was swallowed by a dense silence, punctuated only by the distant, irregular drip of water echoing from unseen recesses. At the bottom of the stairs, the archive revealed itself as a cramped chamber illuminated by a single, flickering fluorescent tube. Rows of glass cabinets lined the walls like grim sentinels, each one filled with neat partitions and mysterious contents. Ha-Newell's heart pounded as she approached one of the cases, its surface glistening in the pale light. Inside, meticulously arranged, were hundreds of extracted teeth. Some were ancient and brittle, others freshly severed, the pulp within still faintly visible, a morbid reminder of recent extractions. The sheer precision of the arrangements betrayed an obsessive attention to detail that unsettled her more deeply than any clinical horror she had ever witnessed. Her breath caught in her throat as she reached out, hesitating before touching the smooth, cool surface of a tooth encased in a sterile jar. It was then that the reverberation of a soft, almost imperceptible clicking sound reached her ears, a sound that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. The teeth, in their macabre display, appeared to murmur secrets of histories untold. Over the following days, Ha-Newell found herself ensnared in a vortex of creeping dread and compulsive investigation. During the day, she maintained her professional veneer, assisting in procedures and documenting case studies with the detached precision expected of a medical intern. But by night, when the pulsating neon of Seoul cast long, twisted shadows through her modest apartment, she combed through records, old newspaper clippings, and obscure online forums that hinted at a series of unresolved disappearances among the city's affluent. The case files she uncovered were riddled with contradictions and omissions, disappearances that bore a disturbing similarity to the patients whose teeth now populated the archive. Late one rain-soaked evening, the city's reflective streets mirrored a distorted version of reality as Ha-Newell sat in a cramped cafe, poring over a faded article about an infamous true crime case. A string of seemingly unrelated abductions linked by one bizarre detail, a series of meticulously extracted teeth, later discovered in abandoned clinics. The article mentioned a shadowy figure behind the abductions, a respected dentist whose reputation masked a deranged compulsion. As she read, her pulse quickened with the realization that the archive might be a repository not of mere anatomical specimens, but of carefully catalogued evidence of unthinkable crimes. The next day, still reeling from the implications, Ha-Nul roamed the clinical corridors with heightened senses. Every polished surface, every sterile instrument, took on a sinister life of its own in the flickering shadows of fluorescent light. During an afternoon of routine cleaning, she glimpsed a reflection in the polished chrome of a dental chair that wasn't her own, a distorted silhouette watching her from the far end of the corridor. When she turned, the corridor was empty, its monotony broken only by a low, almost rhythmic tapping in the distance. Her skin crawled with the dreadful certainty that she was being followed by something both human and inexplicably other. Determined to piece together the mystery, Ha-Nul approached Dr. Kim, the senior dentist known for his brusque manner and inscrutable eyes. In the quiet sanctum of his office, with its heavy drapes and the steady tick of an ornate clock, she tentatively broached the subject of the archive. Dr. Kim's expression remained inscrutable, his gaze lingering on her for an agonizing moment before he leaned forward, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial murmur. "Some things," he said, "are meant to be preserved, even if the truth behind them is too painful or dangerous to confront." His cryptic words left her with more questions than answers, intensifying the gnawing terror that something was profoundly amiss. Ha-Nul's personal life began to unravel under the weight of her investigations. The once meticulous intern now experienced vivid nightmares, dreams where she was trapped in endless corridors lined with cabinets of teeth, where the clicking sound multiplied into a cacophony that synchronized with her racing heart. In these dreams, she was never alone. Shadowy figures emerged from darkened corners, their eyes gleaming with an eerie mixture of pity and accusation. She awoke every time in a cold sweat, the echo of their silent reproach driving her to the brink of paranoia. One night, as heavy rain battered her window, she returned to the archive, compelled by a desperate need for closure. The chamber, with its oppressive silence and haunting array of anatomical relics, seemed to pulsate with a life of its own. As she trailed her fingers along the rows of glass, she noticed a peculiar pattern. The teeth were arranged in clusters, almost as if categorized by an unknown criterion. Her intuition urged her to delve deeper, and behind one particularly worn cabinet, she discovered a concealed drawer. Within lay a weathered notebook, its pages yellowed with age. The author's meticulous handwriting detailed experiments with dental tissue regeneration, recounting strange clinical observations that bordered on the paranormal. But these were not the ramblings of a madman. The research was methodical, filled with references to obscure psychological disorders and unsettling real-life medical anomalies. The notebook recounted an infamous case from decades past, when a prominent dentist in Seoul had been implicated in a series of experimental procedures that blurred the lines between ethical practice and unthinkable exploitation. The procedures, designed under the guise of advanced dental reconstruction, had involved extracting and reimplanting teeth, a method suggested to be derived from obscure medical texts on tissue manipulation and neural grafting. The narrative was chilling in its precision, as if recorded by someone who had witnessed the horrors firsthand. Yet the final entries hinted at a profound desperation, an obsession with preserving something beyond human decay, a fixation on orchestrating a macabre gallery of human remains. The notebook ended abruptly, the final entry smeared with what might have been tears, or perhaps blood. As Ha-Nul absorbed the grisly details, an unsettling realization dawned on her. The archive's teeth might not just be remnants of extracted bodies, but pieces of a dark puzzle that the clinic had been assembling for years. a puzzle whose final image could redefine everything she believed about the boundaries of medical science and human morality. That revelation was abruptly interrupted by the sound of footsteps approaching in the dark hallway. Heart hammering, Hanul pressed herself against the cool wall. The door creaked open, and in the weak light a figure emerged. A figure whose presence felt like the culmination of every dread-filled moment that had haunted her since that first discovery. It was Dr. Kim. His gaze, cold and unnervingly direct, swept over the archive as if he were assessing a sacred relic. "You shouldn't be here," he said quietly, but the tone was not of anger. It was laden with a sorrow that hinted at deep regret. In that moment, every twist in her investigation coalesced into a single, harrowing truth. The clinic's dark experiment was a desperate attempt by broken, morally conflicted individuals caught between ambition and horror. Dr. Kim explained, in halting confessions punctuated by long, painful silences, that the procedures were meant not only as experiments, but as a twisted form of salvation, a means to preserve fragments of identity in a time when everything was in flux. He spoke of patients who had willingly submitted to the process, driven by a profound dread of losing themselves to mental decay, of those who believed that by preserving a piece of themselves they could anchor their fading memories against an encroaching void. Yet there was an additional, perplexing layer to his story, a secret he bore alone. Dr. Kim revealed that his own past was riddled with demons, a childhood of relentless, unspoken abuse, an obsession with order that spiraled into obsessive ritual, and a haunting compulsion that drove him to seek solace in the meticulous extraction and preservation of teeth. Each patient's tooth, he confessed with a voice that trembled between horror and acceptance, was a monument to a lost part of himself, a piece of a shattered puzzle that he had spent decades trying to complete. As Dr. Kim's anguished narrative unfurled, Hanul felt her own inner turmoil mirror his confession. The lines between savior and monster blurred as she recalled fragments of her personal history. A childhood dental procedure that had left her with inexplicable fears of disintegration, of losing the essence that made her human. The realization that her nightmares, the inexplicable visions of mouths whispering in the dark, were perhaps echoes of her own subconscious, was as devastating as it was liberating. In the days that followed, the clinic transformed from a sanctuary of clinical precision into a theater of existential dread. Hanul began to collect fragments of evidence, a misplaced syringe here, an odd ledger entry there, each one weaving a tapestry of moral ambiguity and human frailty. The patients, once seen as mere subjects of clinical progress, emerged as tragic figures in a larger, disquieting narrative of loss and desperate hope. Some had sought refuge from inner torment, while others had been drawn by promises of eternal recollection. All were complicit in a clandestine network where ethics had dissolved into shades of gray. Hanul's investigation reached a fever pitch on a storm-lashed night when she, armed with the notebook and her own mounting evidence, confronted Dr. Kim in the dim heart of the archive. The confrontation was cinematic, an interplay of rain beating against stone, the low hum of fluorescent lights, and a palpable tension that crackled in the heavy air. As thunder rumbled in the distance, their voices mingled in a desperate dialogue of regret, fear, and a shared acknowledgement of human frailty. Dr. Kim's eyes, haunted and resigned, met hers as he murmured, "We're all fragments, hey Newell." In trying to hold on to what we fear may vanish, we sometimes become the very thing we dread. In that charged moment, Hanul recognized the impossible truth. The horror of the archive was not solely in the grotesque remnants it held, but in the relentless, corrosive pursuit of preserving memory. a pursuit that inevitably transformed the soul. The amalgamation of extracted teeth, meticulously catalogued and chillingly displayed, symbolized the desperate attempts by broken humans to resist the inevitable decay of time. Each cold clinical specimen was a testament to a life that had once teetered on the brink, caught between the desire for self-preservation and the stark realization of mortality. Walking away from the archive that night, Ha-Nul felt both liberated and irreparably altered. The city's rain-washed streets glistened under the sparse glow of streetlights, as if mourning a collective, unspoken loss. She carried with her a secret burden, one that blurred the conventional boundaries of right and wrong, of sanity and madness. In the labyrinthine corridors of Dehua Dental, amid corridors of gleaming modernity and clandestine horror, the true enemy was not an external force or a deranged killer. It was the insidious decay that gnawed at the human spirit, the underlying fear that no matter how meticulously one tried to preserve oneself, time would eventually strip away every semblance of identity. Ha-Nul understood that her own nightmares, the unsettling whispers of disembodied voices, and the visions of teeth that seemed to murmur her hidden fears, were both a reflection of her internal fragility and a mirror to the world around her, a world where even the most sterile environments could harbor the darkest of secrets. With every step back towards the clinical front, she carried the weight of both knowledge and despair. The corridor behind her now felt charged with a haunting melancholy, each polished surface reflecting fragments of a story that would never be fully told, its final chapters buried beneath layers of clinical detachment and the indifferent passage of time. And so, as dawn crept slowly over the storm-torn skyline of Seoul, Ha-Nul resumed her place among the living, now a reluctant guardian of the archive's terrible truth. The city hummed with the routine cadence of everyday life, oblivious to the silent horrors that lay beneath its gleaming facades. In the stillness of early morning, amidst the muted reflections of a rainy world, Ha-Nul's resolve hardened. She would continue her investigation, not to expose a monstrous criminal enterprise, but to understand the multifaceted tragedy that lay at the heart of human fragility. For in every extracted tooth, every meticulously labeled specimen in that hidden chamber, there resided a cry for remembrance, a desperate plea against oblivion. In the lingering twilight, as the city stirred awake and the secrets of Dehua Dental threatened to dissolve into the routine of daylight, Ha-Nul's internal battle raged on. Uncertain, yet unbowed, she became a quiet sentinel in a world where morality was ever shifting. And the true horror was the relentless decay of memory, a decay that was as inevitable as the ticking of a clock, echoing softly beneath the clinical hum of modern life.